Hi guys, my name is Damilola. Welcome to my YouTube channel. All subscribers, thank you for checking out my video once again. New viewers, do well to subscribe and like the video if you find it very useful. Today we'll be talking about Python typing module and why you might want to check this module out, what value will they add to your project, and how important it can be for you. In Python, as you already know, Python is an interpreted language. It's loosely typed compared to the likes of Java and some other statically typed languages. However, with this Python typing module, we can actually get some benefits at runtime, like suppose like the static typing languages, and we can do this with something called type hinting or type annotation, which the typing module provides us. What this does for us is it allows you to document your code in such a way that you write your code in such a way that you specify the type explicitly. However, doing this does not exactly mean that, for instance, and I'll show you in a minute, if you gave a variable a type of string, that if you did pass in an integer, that Python break your code. No, that is not going to be the case. What will be the case, which is why you would not use, or rather why you would want to use something called a static analysis tools alongside doing things like, say, using the typing module. And the reason for that is you run the static analysis code tool before you run the code, and by so doing it would let you know if there are issues like this where you gave the wrong type and supplied a value of yet a different type, which are incompatible, and so many other benefits that it adds to it. On top of that, I'm sure you are you can see how this can be really useful for you, and in a very large code base you will see, as I'll show you how this works in a bit. It makes documentation of your code easy, and as your code base grows and more people come on board to work on it, things are a lot more intuitive just by looking at the code and the type int, the annotation that has been given to different types and variables and everything in your code base. More so, it also allows your IDE or text editor provide you with some auto completion, better auto completion, right, and documentation of your types, which all of this make your life a lot more easier and make you more effective and of course productive. Without further ado, let me show you how this typing module works in Python code bases, shall we? So here on my text editor, I'm using Visual Studio Code. Feel free to use whatever text editor you decide that pleases you. So what I've done here, as usual, I've prepared my development environment I use Poetry for my Python virtual environment. That's why you see this Py project, and in here you see I do not have any dependencies, although we are going to need one in this video, and I will show you which one we are going to be using in a minute and how we are going to use it. So like I mentioned earlier, in Python is a loosely typed language. So ideally, if I did something like name equals Damilola, right, and I run my code and say python main.py, yeah, my bad, I needed to print that, print name, and then we do this, I get Damilola. And even if I came down here and I decided to change my name to an integer for some reason, and then it wouldn't complain. All right, this is predefined in Python land. All right. This is useful given that Python is a scripting language, and at the same time, this can be a serious problem, right? Because printing it here is a very trivial example, so might not seem like much, but imagine if you're passing this as a argument to a function that is actually expecting a string, right? And you pass something like an integer of 2, clearly something is gonna go wrong. All right. And of course you might have some checks in place and whatnot, but yeah, something is still bound to go wrong. However, so with the typing module, what the typing module has provided us is something such that coupled with using a static analysis tool, we can mitigate some of these issues before they happen at runtime. Okay, so to use the typing module, what you have to do is int this variable name. And if I say something like string, let me comment this out, and this is how you would actually int a variable name in by using the type inting. So you do colon, and then you pass a type that you're trying to use on that variable, as the case may be. If I said Damilala here, notice this, just like what we saw before, and if I did this again, that's still doing as it was earlier on by inferring the type. Okay, this is not exactly showing us any benefit of the type hinting. All right, which is where the static analysis tool comes in. There is something called Mypy. Okay, don't worry, I'll put the link in the description below. You want to install Mypy from PyPy, all right, and by running pip install Mypy. Okay, however, I'm using Poetry. So the way Poetry lets you install is by typing something like Poetry add pipe Mypy excuse me, Mypy, if I can type correctly, and yeah, Mypy is installed. Okay, and how would you use this? If we go to use this code analysis tool called this static code analysis tool called Mypy, excuse me, what we have to do is say Mypy, and then we'll pass along the path to the file that we want to actually analyze. We want the tool to analyze for us. In this case, I'm in the same directory, so all I do is main.py excuse me, and as you can see here, you see it says line 3, where we are changing string to an integer, saying compatible types in assignment, expression as type int, variable as type string, as you can see, and I think that's pretty clear what that means there. This is quite useful, as you can imagine. If we were in a very big code base, this is telling us of a potential issue even before we run it, because if you did run this code as it is, it would work. All right, and I can show you that main.py it would work even though it's working wrongly apparently. So what we can, as we've seen there, so this is benefit of what a static code analysis tool like Mypy can give us with the typing module. Okay, so let's do some more useful stuff. For instance, so you can declare different types. So let's say we want to declare we want to int a list type. Okay, so let's save courses, and then we int as list. Okay, and then we say Python course, Java course, JavaScript course. All right, and we want to print out course. All right, as you can imagine, if we run our static analysis tool, everything is fine. All right, there is no issue found whatsoever, and if we run our code, everything is working as expected. If we wanted to int a dictionary, right, let's say student now. All right, we say this is how you do that. For a dictionary, say dict, and since it's a key value pair, all right, so we know that we want the key to be a string, and then we want to give the value any, which we would have to bring in. We need to import that from the typing module. So we say from typing, not types, typing, and we import any. All right, in this case we want it to be of any type. We don't know beforehand what kind of value it's going to have, so we can do that, and we can do something like, say, oh, I spelled student wrong. You can immediately assign value to it like this, of course. Say name, say Damilala, say courses, and then we say course. Let's call this courses. All right. And as you can imagine, the list goes on and on. All right, so if we did print students, and I believe none of this is really out of the ordinary. If you've have some basic Python knowledge at the least, you will see that we are actually not doing anything out of ordinary here. Why I'm doing this is just to show you some of the approach you can take if you wanted to, define a list, define a dictionary, and we'll get into some bit more advanced stuff in a second. As you can see, when we run Mypy, there was no issue found. Okay, and even if we did assign this, like say student, and we just did this and run Mypy again, as you can imagine, yes, of course, there is nothing wrong there. So you might think, okay, yeah, I've seen this, and of course, let's say for instance we wanted to, instead of assigning the dictionary there, we decide to now put just courses, right, as a list. If we run this, you expect an error. All right, so as you can see, it says the expression as type of list of any, and the variable is expecting a dictionary of this data structure. All right, so you can see the kind of benefit this thing can give you on a bigger scale, even in your own side projects or as you work. So let's go into some more useful, advanced looking stuff. All right, let's take for instance a function. All right, let's say register course. Okay, this is if you wanted to type in a function variable and the return type. How would you do that? We can do that like, say, let's say to register a course, of course you want to send in the course name or the course in itself. Okay, so let's say you want to register a course, so let's say course. Maybe we even want to know the student, where we say student, and then we say course. So to register a student, let's say we just need a student's name. All right, and that can be a string. Let's be explicit. Let's say student's name, and that's a string. And we want to register a course. Let's take it a step further. Okay, in my last video we talked about Python data class. So let's make use of that here and declare a data class for course. Okay, and we'll just say, let's just say class course. We just need the name of the course, that's a string, and let's say the code of the course, let's also call that a string. And we can do something like from data class, import data class, and we can do just this. All right, nothing out of the ordinary here. If you're not familiar with this, you can check my previous video, and I'll drop the link in the description as well. And the reason I'm doing this is just to show you how it doesn't matter the model of the data, you can type into it in Python and using this module, and we can say course is this. It's of type course. All right, and we say, let's say this will return us, for instance, say student. Okay, I don't want to complicate things, so let's just say it will return us a boolean of, okay, true or false if the course has been registered. All right, so, and that's how you actually type into it. We've entered the variable, the argument, as well as the return type, and this is how you do a return type. It looks like an arrow. It's not an arrow really, it's just a dash and a greater than. I'm using I allowed ligature in my text editor, which is why it's making it look like it's an arrow really. So yeah, just putting that out there. Okay, so we want to, and we can carry on from this point, obviously. All right, if we run our static code analysis tool, let's say we are calling, let's just say we print we don't print, let's just say we return true, for instance. We don't exactly have any implementation whatsoever, and let's just say we return true there. What we can do here is say print, or let's call the function, we say register course, and then we say course is Danny or Daniel. All right, and we can, so let's try something now. We know courses of this type, but we would not give it this, and let's see what happens. Let's just say we pass in Python. Right, as you can imagine, if we run, let me clear this, if we run Mypy again, of course it wouldn't allow us. It says it has incompatible type string, it's expected type course. All right, but if we did this, even though I think we should just do it on a different line like this, say course, and then we say name is Python, and then code is, let's say py. All right, and we do this, yeah, everything is fine again. Once again, as you can imagine, this is actually very useful. Once again, what else would I like to show you? I would like to show you some other important stuff, like something called Callables. All right, don't worry, all the code will be on my GitHub, and the link will be in the description of this video as well. Imagine you have Callables are actually, you know, as a sound, they are callables. Callables, for instance, are like functions. Okay, let's take for instance you want to send a callback in this function, right? And then the callback, of course, is a function that will be called in this function, right? You want to pass a function as a variable to say yet another function. How would that work, right? You can use something like, say, a callable. Okay, and how that works is quite straightforward. It simply means when you see this, technically it's expecting a function, right? You are sending a function. That's how you type a function in taking advantage of the typing module. So what if we do something like send email? So after you register for a course, we want if it was successful, remember to send an email, right? So let's say the callback now. All right, so we are still gonna use the same register course example. Okay, all right, so we'll do something like say this let's say callback, right? And how do we type in that? To say callable. By the way, I hope my font is big enough. I'm so sorry, I forgot to bump that up early on. Let me show you how this looks. To declare a callable, you do something like this. You say callable and the square bracket. Okay, so let's take for instance, this callable is going to be callback to send an email. So what we want is, of course, maybe if you wanted to take arguments, so you put in yet another square bracket in there, and that if you don't want to take any argument, you just leave this empty. If you want to take any argument, you can pass anything in here, say string, say int, say whatever amount of variables that you want the function to take. And if you don't want to take any, all you have to do is send none. But if you want to return something that is not returning none, you put a comma there, and then you put the return type. Okay, in this case, let's say this doesn't take anything, or let's take a string. Let's assume that string is going to be the email address. All right, and just like that, let's say we just do callback. Oh no, callback. All right, we send the callback. You can see our type int in over here is showing us that this callback takes an argument of a string to return a boolean, right? So we can do something like say email at me.com. all right, and we know that this is going to return us a boolean. All right, so we say send mail, right? So if send mail, right, sending email, you get the idea. So, and that's how you do it for, like, say if you were taking a function. Okay, in here. So one thing I also like to show you again is what if you want to take in optional parameters, optional argument, in a case where the argument is fine but it's not required. In a case like this, the arguments are required. We have students, we have courses, right? The arguments are required by default. Okay, so if you try to call this function without this, and I can show you that if we remove this, all of it, and we run Mypy again, you see it says missing position argument, this. All right, so what if we wanted to make it optional? Okay, we don't. So there is yet another keyword in the typing module called optional. All right, this time around, let's create another function and call that something like, say, pay tax. All right, and let's say we need the tax code, for instance, which is going to, of course, will be required. You need to know the tax code, and you need to know, let's say this is all, this is just an example. Let's say we need the age. All right, let's put that as an integer. Okay. And then let's say something that is optional. What can we use as optional here? Let's say, okay, let's say the age is optional. All right. Not to complicate things. So how do we do that? So we'll wrap this around this. Okay, and say we want to return what? Maybe a string. Okay, and if we return paid, for instance. Okay, ideally you want to probably check. Okay, let's say if age. All right, if you provide us your age, we can do some further logic for any case we want to do here, and then we'll proceed from there, right? And that's how you'd actually pass in an optional parameter. And I can show you this in a sec. If we try to, let me comment this one's out. If we try to call this function now, say pay tax, all right, you can see that if we run our static analysis tool, if we run Mypy again, so it says missing position argument, task code, age in this. Okay. But if we did give a task code, let's say our task code is 102. Okay, and then we'll run this again. Now it's a missing position argument age. Okay. It's optional. So if you wanted an optional argument, so we can do this and get an optional argument. Okay, cool. So I would like to also show you something else. Then there's this concept of generics. So that is also available here. So I will show you how you can create generics, and generics is essentially saying, so I have this type, but I don't know the type, right? So at runtime, you'd infer the type based on the type of the value that is being passed, right? So it will infer that. So to do that, we use something called type var. All right, so let's create let me put this generics. Yes, generics, and here we say optional type. So let's say t is equals to type var, and then you put the name you want to give it. Let's just give it t as well. Okay, and in this case, let's say we want to have something like send mail. All right, let's create a function. Let's say send mail. All right, and we send mail to like a list of recipients. Okay, so we can do something like saying recipients of list of type t, right, to return none. Okay, and we can do something like say for item in recipients, and of course we can print item. All right, if we call send mail, the good thing here is now let's say we send mailer at me.com, mail somebody at someone.com. Okay, this as well as say send mail to 1 2 3 4, right? We'll do the same thing. By doing the same thing, I mean he knows that I don't know what t is going to be, but I'm going to get a list of type t, and whatever that type is, that is what I'm going to perform my actions on. Okay, so you want to be careful when using this as well. You can see there is no issue whatsoever. Okay, and if we run our code, as you can imagine, it would run just fine. So here it's listing strings, and here it's listing integers. You also want to be really careful when you're using this, because if you are doing some imagine you're doing some string method calls on this, right? In this case that will be fine, in this case that will be some form of bugs, right? So you also want to be mindful how you use it and where you use it. What else would I like to show you? So we can also use something called iterables, right? So if I to show you some iterables, we can bring in iterable from here, say from typing module. So you can say iterable, okay, and let's say we define yet another function that gives us what? Names of students. Okay, let's say student register, and we want to get students name, right? And we can use iterable of say string. Okay, and let's say it gives us a string. Okay, so we want to, let's call this students, for student in students print student. Okay, it's similar to what the list is, because the list in itself is also an iterable, right? So you can, I believe you can actually use them interchangeably. So you can have something like student register and send in a list of Dami, Dan, Ricky, Jones, right? And if we, let's comment this so we don't get a printer out there as well, you can see. And as you can imagine, so far is an iterable. If we turn this to a tuple, if we use a tuple here, tuple is also an iterable. As you can imagine, it will work, right? So if you want an iterable of, so far the type you're passing can be iterated, right? You can pass that as an iterable and it would work just fine. Okay, this is how you can make use of this typing module, and some benefit that, as you've seen, like by using static code analysis tool like Mypy, how it can help you catch some issues right before it even happens, right? With this, I'll bring this to the end of this tutorial. I hope you find this useful, and if you do not hesitate to hit the subscribe button, do like the video and share with your friends. Thank you. Until next time, bye.